Canada just continues to have a structural affordability crisis. The real question is, what is the property worth now? What is a house that used to be worth $1.5 million or $2 million? What's it worth now that nobody's really sure about who actually owns it? They've discovered is they may have overstepped. The results of this decision are creating a backlash across Canada.
Can you give us a forecast of where Canadian mortgage rates are going to go?
We're going to see.
We're talking now with Ron Butler. He is the host of the Angry Mortgage podcast and the principal broker at Butler Mortgage. We will be talking to him about the issues surrounding Canadian and U.S. real estate markets. Lots to discuss, a lot of news, a lot of new developments. Let's get his outlook on the residential and commercial property markets into the new year. Welcome back to the show. Good to see you, Ron, as always.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Ron runs an excellent channel. Check it out and check out our last interview with Ron from a few months ago. The issues of declining mortgage rates across the U.S. And the issues of potentially more economic activity, according to some, or potentially a slower economy, according to others. Let's see how that weighs in on the U.S. real estate markets. We'll talk about that. Let's start by talking about the Canadian markets first, though. We're both Canadians. So this is an interesting piece of news that's popping up. And I'll just give a bit of context for the American audience here, or maybe even the Canadian audience who may not be aware. So what happened a couple of weeks ago or months ago is the BC Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Cowichan tribe, which is indigenous tribe or nation here in the province of British Columbia, to award them the land title in Richmond, BC. It's a couple acres around the number 6 road in Richmond here, you can see. And this was an ongoing case that lasted more than 500 days. But it set a precedent that private land can now be transferred titles to the Aboriginal people. So this is according to the Fraser Institute that ran a headline or an article about this issue dated August 27th. All of BC now subject to Aboriginal title claims. Now, we have a number of cases appearing around the country simultaneously. There's a land claim dispute around the city of Kelowna in BC. There's also a similar land claim dispute for the province of Quebec in Western Quebec. Now, the Cowichan tribe has come out with a statement and said they do not intend for this to affect property prices. And in fact, this was I'll just read their response exactly, so I'm not paraphrasing incorrectly here. To be clear, the statement says the Cowichan Nation's court case regarding their settlement lands in Richmond has not and does not challenge the effectiveness or validity of any title held by individual private landowners. The ruling does not erase private property. So we're here to discuss what this actually means. I'll finish on this one final point here. There was an interview done online with a gentleman who claims to live in that area that's affected. I'll just play for you 30 seconds of what he had to say, and then we can react together.
So how long have you lived here?
1975. I grew up in Richmond. I elected that guy.
Do you have a mortgage on your property here in Richmond?
I do.
Have you spoken to your lender?
I have.
And what have they told you?
They are not renewing it.
Wow.
I paid taxes, I bought the place. Now, lo and behold, I don't own my place. Not fair.
Okay, so that seems to be a problem for him. All right, I'll finish off on this statement. I've seen online lawyers talking about this issue. British Columbia is now the only economy in the West that cannot, with absolute indefeasible evidence or rights, protect property rights, is the argument. And now, banks are a little bit alarmed at what could happen next. What's your read on the situation?
The tribe can say whatever they want. The Aboriginal band can say whatever they want. The court awarded them dual title to this land. That's the court's result. They said it. It's published. They can say that we don't want to own anybody's property, but I think that's a defensive move because what they've discovered is they may have overstepped. They may have the results of this decision are creating a backlash across Canada. The Canadians have long held for the last 20 or so years that First Nations people were subject to abuse, were subject to poor treatment, subject to all kinds of things, and that Canadians should redress and we are paying forms of reparations. There's $60 billion assigned to compensate families who were affected by the 60 scoop. That's a lot of money, $60 billion. It's a big line item in the budget. And the band all of a sudden has decided that, hey, this may turn the tide. This may reverse all of Canada's previous sympathetic feelings and really make everybody angry. And guess what? They're right. Everybody's angry. So it's not it's an unreasonable idea that people who have bought a piece of property with the full and complete belief that they have free title to that property, and all of a sudden there's now a co-title holder, because that was the outcome of the court case. So the gentleman who's referring to a problem with his mortgage, that's not really the case for almost everybody who lives there. The Canadian banks have made it clear that in this particular case, and as you correctly cited, there are a number of other cases that have developed across Canada, or at least a whole group of claims that are either starting or ongoing. And that's just the truth. I mean, there's been a case involving this whole city of Kamloops that's been ongoing for the last 4 years and may end up with a slightly similar result. All this it just underlines the fact that if property title is uncertain, there's no bank can consider giving a mortgage. Now, on the properties in Richmond, banks have made it clear that they will offer renewals on those properties. But what I would suggest to you is that for private lenders who are not banks, for other types of lenders who are not banks, there may be a consideration that they would not wish to renew those mortgages. I can't speak for them, obviously. I don't know who holds the mortgages on those properties. But the big six banks have made it clear they're not going to non-renew those clients. They will offer renewals to those borrowers. But the real question is, what is the property worth now? What is a house that used to be worth $1.5 million or $2 million? What's it worth now that nobody's really sure about who actually owns it? Or is there a co-ownership attached to it?
Can you just explain why it affects property values to begin with? I mean, all you're doing is transferring titles from I don't know if it was Crown land previously, but if you are, you're just transferring titles from Crown land to Aboriginal titles. But how does that really change the underlying value of the land itself?
Well, that's because part of this settlement, part of the lands inside the settlement are currently owned by individuals who have fee simple title. They have their own title to that property, what the court action did was create a dual title holding, that the Cowichan Band had interest in the title of those properties, those actual properties owned by individuals, not traditional Crown land. So that's a problem, because if you want to sell that property and you paid $2 million for it 3 years ago, when this court case was barely understood by anybody in the country, then who wants to buy that land today? Like, what if there's any kind of cloud on title, anything, just even a notion of it, a sentiment that it's wrong, then who wants to buy that land that there could be a problem with the actual ongoing ownership? So your $3 million, $2 million property has now had value erosion on a spectacular basis. That's just logic. That's the way real estate market works.
Well, a big part of BC, the exact number is disputed, and actually a big part of Canada overall has unceded territory. So technically it's up for grabs by whichever Aboriginal nation lays claim to that particular territory. And as we've talked about previously, there's a number of cases that are ongoing still across the country. People are now speculating whether or not the BC Supreme Court ruling, which by the way is under appeal by the BC, by the Vancouver and Richmond municipal governments, that ruling has set a precedent for other cases to be won in favor of Aboriginal title claims. What do you think?
Every time a judge rules, precedent is created. That's just the absolute truth of our legal system. That's the basis of the common law system of torts. That's what you call these things. They're civil disputes. The basis of the law of torts is prior case law. So now that we have a judgment in place, whether it's under appeal or not, it can be cited in other actions. And most vividly, it means that people can get the idea they should try. Here's something really, really important to understand about these claims from First Nations. They don't pay their own legal fees. There are NGOs, non-government organizations that exist to support these communities with legal actions of all types, and particularly this kind of legal action. And those NGOs are funded through our government. So the taxpayer pays the Aboriginal organizations to litigate against the taxpayer. Yeah, that's actually the truth. That's the reason that this incredibly expensive lawsuit, this incredibly lengthy amount of court time, at some points there were 85 lawyers looking at the case. That's why they can afford to do it, is because in the end, taxpayers are the ones who pay for the litigation.
Okay, so two questions to finalize this segment here. What's going to happen to property owners who are now occupying or living on land that is under a suit or a claim? I mentioned pretty much all of Kelowna is now, which is a city in the interior of BC. What's going to happen to their property rights and ultimately their property values and what they can do about it?
I think it's true that the average real estate buyer does not sit up and pay attention until there's an actual suit has been settled, until a court has made a decision. Some of these ongoing arguments in the interior British Columbia will probably be settled with a payment from the province of British Columbia. Probably this case itself, this Richmond case, will indeed probably be settled with a payment from the province of British Columbia. So it is not, until there's an actual decision made, it is not as impactful. It's not going to harm those property values.
Well, for new buyers, what can we do to check whether the land that we're buying or supposedly buying is under dispute? Any way we can do that?
Well, all of the disputes are fairly well publicized. It's not impossible to learn that there is an ongoing court battle regarding lands in a particular community. That's not hard. Real estate lawyers are aware of it. Certainly, the provincial government and the municipality is very aware of it. If the municipality is being sued, they have to make that a part of public record. So it's not that hard to find out. But I do caution that as a professional in the real estate mortgage business, I can tell you that I wouldn't get worried until I knew there was an actual decision made. In the case of Richmond, there is a court decision issued, hence all of the concern and confusion.
This is a reel that I found on Instagram. I can't find the original video that doesn't have any commentary, but I'll just show you anyway. This is Gregor Robertson in Parliament talking about his housing plan. Take a listen. We'll react together.
For the Conservatives, but can you help them? We can help them. We can help you with this. We're looking at investing $13 billion in affordable housing across the country. Mr. Speaker, those initial 4,000 homes will be on Canada lands in 6 cities across the country. That's getting a quick start on building affordable homes. We're going to see tens of thousands of homes built across Canada in all of our communities. We count on the support across the House. Thank you.
Member for Dufferin Caledon. $13 billion for 4,000 homes is $3.2 million per home. That's not affordable. It's all starting to make sense where this scheme was cooked up. You've got a housing minister who oversaw the doubling of rent and the doubling of housing prices when he was mayor of Vancouver. The head of this new agency came from the city of Toronto that increased the cost of building by 700%. It's almost like the interview process for these positions was, are you incompetent? Were you fired from your last job? Once again, for the sake of Canadian...
All right, I'll just stop there. Yeah, that was the Minister of Housing, Gregor Robertson, and then his Conservative counterpart arguing. So I'll just get you to react to that clip, and then we can comment on the Liberals' housing plan.
Look, it's absolutely known now. There's no longer any dispute. The government themselves do not dispute this. Everything about Build Canada Homes is about building social housing and rental housing. There's absolutely not $1 of the billions and billions and billions of dollars that are going into this that will ever create a home that someone can buy. That's a fact. It's acknowledged now. There's no longer any misunderstanding. This is about social housing for people who have who municipalities underwrite the cost of their living in the properties, or it's pure rental. There is no homes to buy in Build Canada Homes. That's it. Now, saying that, are they going to build many of them? Because the theory of building a lot of rental homes, and I'm not pretending that social housing isn't needed, it is needed. But the idea of building a lot of rental homes produces the concept that, oh, well, that'll help push down the price. There's a lot of homes to rent. That'll help ameliorate the prices of the high prices of homes in Canada. But the truth is that these are going to be built so slowly. In the election campaign, the Prime Minister relentlessly referenced the idea they would build half a million homes, 500,000 homes a year was the promise on the campaign trail. The Minister of Housing, Greg Robertson, has now rolled that back to a couple tens of thousands of homes a year. Maybe we'll get to 100,000 homes sometime in the 2030s. That's not me talking. That's the housing minister talking. So yeah, this is the entire scope of this program has been degraded, and it is now clear, and they've admitted there's nothing about homes people can buy in this whole program.
So let's just walk through this a bit more detail. This is their website, the government of Canada, driving long-term affordable housing solutions. Canada's housing crisis is too big to solve with a business as usual approach. Well, let's stop there. What crisis are they referring to? The affordability crisis?
Yeah, the fact that if you want to buy a home that a family could, that you could have kids and raise a family in. Sure. If you want to buy a 1,500 square foot townhouse in the GTA, you're probably looking at a price that's between $900 and $1 million. And that is not an easily attainable house price for anyone who's making an average family income.
So their solution is to build what they call affordable homes that you just said is not up for sale. So how does it solve?
None of them are for sale. Not one of them is for sale.
So how does this solve the housing crisis, Ron?
Well, it's trickle-down economics. I mean, their concept is by building more rental properties at a lower cost with lower rents, that they will be able to allow people to save money, and maybe someday they can buy their own home. But this is a very notional concept. I mean, we just have to all understand it. Social housing is needed. People who have problems or disabled or you name it, they need some place to live. They make very little income. Their housing should be subsidized. But the idea that by producing more rentals that you're going to knock down the price of homes to purchase, it's not a proven fact. In some cases it defies logic. So this is just a plan to build rentals. That's all it is.
Do we know if there's a criteria that you have to meet in order to apply to rent here? Or can anybody just move into lower? I mean, I want lower rent, right?
Sure.
So
let me put it this way: the municipal social housing, they have strict guidelines about who can apply, and you have to have a very low income, and that's a well understood program. It varies per municipality, but it's well understood. The idea of having lower cost rentals, these units should reflect market rents. In other words, they'll be owned by REITs, they'll be owned by pension plans. The idea is that they will be built at a lower cost, and therefore the pension plan or the REIT would be able to offer it at a lower rent than perhaps other properties. But these are all market-driven issues. If rents are high in the future, then these won't be 40% less. They might be 5% less. If rents are low in the future, they may not even be that attractive. They may be the same price as other rentals. These are that they will be market rental properties that fall into the purview of whatever rents are going for at the time, maybe a tiny bit less.
Okay, so moving away from the public sector, what are private developers doing right now? Is there an incentive in the marketplace for private developers to be expanding the supply right now?
Yes, in some cities in Canada and some provinces in Canada, some regions, continue to take advantage of CMHC Select, which is a multifamily, essentially a apartment building driven program, which has had a huge uptick. In fact, in the budget, they allocated another $20 billion to CMHC and raised their overall limit because they expect this program to continue to provide purpose-built rentals. Again, nothing to buy. There's no question any of these are to buy, but it will continue to grow the purpose-built rental supply in various marketplaces, but not mainly in Ontario, not mainly in British Columbia, mainly in Quebec, Atlantic, and in the Prairie provinces.
Well, give us an overview of the property markets in some of the biggest cities. Vancouver, Toronto, for example. You were previously on my show. You said the Toronto condo market is going to see a lot of trouble. I personally spoke with somebody who works in Vancouver, who works on the legal side of transacting office buildings. And she told me that property values for office buildings, not on the residential side, are somewhere near 2016 prices now. So they've come down a lot. And I just want to get your take and overview of what's going on.
Yeah, there's no question that the condo crash in the GTA continues on pace, that there are still more and more units coming on stream and to completion, that there's a tremendous pricing problem. We looked at a file just yesterday. The person had paid $1,350 a square foot. The appraisal came in at $950 a square foot. They've got to find the rest of the money somewhere to increase the down payment, because that's what those products are selling for today on a resale basis. Exactly that new product. He bought that 6 years ago, and he paid $1,350 a square foot with the intention that everything would go through the sky. And indeed, it is $950 and falling. So bad news for anybody who bought a condo in the GTA in 2021, 2020, 2022.
Well, can you give us a forecast of where Canadian mortgage rates are going to go?
Sure. We're going to see probably a slight bump in rates, only slight, in the coming weeks, but they'll still mainly be under 4% for fixed rate. Prime rate based mortgages, like variable rate mortgages, will be lower. They are lower today. The very best possible CMHC program mortgage rate today on variable is as low as 3.45. That's the lowest possible rate you could get. And the fixed rate is around 3.69, 3.64. So there's already a price advantage to variable. We believe that no matter what the Bank of Canada governor says, there will be a point next year where he continues to cut the Bank of Canada rate, whether that's in February, March, or April. There will be cuts, probably at least 2 more cuts next year, even though he says he stopped. He hasn't stopped. He's just watching. So we will see some further prime rate reductions next year.
Let's move on to the U.S. now. So Donald Trump earlier this week, proposed a 50-year mortgage plan. This hasn't been passed yet. There's been some pushback by industry leaders, but let's just get your reaction to the 50-year mortgage plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues around the 50-year mortgage plan. There's some capital markets issues that the people who build mortgage product are not really ready for that in any way, because there's a bunch of issues surrounding the fact that in the first 10 years of a 50-year mortgage term, there's effectively no equity being paid off. You've essentially got an interest-only mortgage for the first 5 to 10 years. That's a problem for capital markets. Capital markets use a 30-year mortgage or a 25-year mortgage, and they assume a certain amount of principal pay down is locked into the product, which it is, and that's how they reach their pricing points. When you're running an interest-only mortgage, you have to, for the first 10 years, you have to take a different approach to mortgage rates. So it might not achieve the kind of magnificent savings the president was hoping for. The other consideration is just that. You're not paying anything off the mortgage. So the proponents of this idea, and there are proponents of this idea, 50-year mortgage, they say, look, it's going to give people more of a chance to get into the market because the payment's going to be lower, and it is. But you're paying off nothing of the principal. So those advocates for using this 50-year product or creating this 50-year product, they also say that, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Property appreciation will just carry along. Well, I got a whole bunch of people in Detroit, Michigan in the 1990s and 2000s that will explain to you that there is no guarantee of price appreciation, that in fact prices can go almost to zero. So it's a false dichotomy of lower payments to get you into the market, but by the end of 10 years, you haven't paid off a dime of principal, not a penny. Well, a few $100.
Well, that's right. And can you just a message for the young people now, Ron? A lot of people my age, millennials, considering getting into the home market, and their rationale is, why am I wasting money on rent? I'm never getting that money back. I should be buying a home. At least I'll get the money back. And my argument is, first of all, you're still spending a lot on other costs, mortgage costs, like you just talked about, repair, maintenance, property tax. You're not getting any of that money back. And second, that investment could be spent on something else that may generate a higher yield. So it's really up to you to figure out what your personal finances are. How do you go about answering that question, Ron? How do you look at it?
Look, that's a very accurate description. We have many communities in expensive communities where high-priced real estate in Canada today, where if you do it, because rents have fallen almost 10% in the last 30 months in Canada, in the expensive regions, in Toronto and Calgary and in Vancouver area. So because rents are falling, there's a case to be made today that, yeah, you're actually, from a pure financial point of view, today you are better off renting, and you're probably better off renting even on a 25 or 30-year basis. Now, here's the problem with renting. It's not about, rent and invest the difference. What it's really about is, it's very hard to stay in the same place when you rent for a very long period of time. I mean, the true value of homeownership is to be able to stay in the place for as long as you want, as long as you can make the payments. All this talk about homeownership as being a superb investment, it really misled people about what homeownership's about. Homeownership's about raising a family, having the same school that kids can go to, knowing your neighbors, being able to do what you want with the house, which you can't do if you're a renter. But from a pure financial point of view, I've seen numerous studies today in expensive real estate areas in Canada where you're just better off renting.
And then let's evaluate the health of the American consumer. So this headline looks scary on the surface. Foreclosures jumped 20% in October. Maybe a sign that housing market is in distress. Maybe it is, and I'll let you comment on that. But then you look at the actual long-term data, it's still well below the historical average, the foreclosure rate on single-family residential mortgages. So can you just comment on this?
Sure. I mean, it is really important to understand that there is no one housing market in the United States.
Yes.
I mean, you could be experiencing price degradation in Florida, and in Utah, it's still going up. In Colorado, it's still going up. So it's very, very hard just to make a judgment of the United States as one blanket market. In terms of, we're seeing all kinds of increases in power of sales in Canada as well, but they're still below historic norms. Foreclosure in the United States is still below historic norms. There's no reasonable person would call an emergency on this issue right now. What we're really coming away from is a point where they were artificially low. We experienced the lowest foreclosure rates, power of sale rates in Canada during 21, 22, 23. We experienced the lowest default mortgage rate in both nations during the COVID period. If something is an artificially low floor, you're going to see some increase, and I think that's what we're seeing right now.
And similar question to the Canadian market, mortgage rates, they've been coming down slightly. Where do you see them headed, and how ultimately will they affect consumers? Again, I know there's no one housing market in the U.S. People will react to this differently, but people are certainly looking forward to mortgage rates. Will they act on it?
Well, I mean, I think it's reasonable to believe that the Fed will, in jumps and starts, continue to reduce its Fed market rate. I think it's reasonable to assume, and certainly after the current chairman is gone at some point in the spring, there could be even more deliberate moves to see rates come down. We know that the United States has now stopped quantitative tightening. It's over with. There should be a number of things that contribute to slightly lower rates in the United States moving forward. In Canada, again, we'll see variable rates come down. I can't speak to fixed rates right now. It's just a it's slow. It's below 4% in Canada. So I think that I can't really speak to any kind of certainty of what's going to happen in the next 6 months there. But definitely lower variable rates.
Both Canada and the U.S. governments have declared that the housing situation is some sort of national crisis. Which country actually, according to your research, actually is closer to a structural affordability crisis?
Canada just continues to have a structural affordability crisis. The problem that we're experiencing in Canada is we have had fairly stagnant wages for the last 3 years. You can make a case that in the United States, there's been like rational wage growth, which we've not experienced in Canada. So that exacerbates that problem. I would also suggest that the base pricing in most markets in the United States is significantly lower than Canada. You can still buy a very nice home outside in the suburbs of Cincinnati at a very reasonable price. It's higher than it was 2 years ago, but it's not anything near the kind of crisis in terms of pricing that we have in suburbs in Canada.
Well, there's talk that there's a shortage of supply in the U.S., particularly in the U.S. I mean, the same applies for Canada, but let's just talk about the U.S. for now. Is that a result of lack of inventory, or is just homeowners locking in and not wanting to let go of low mortgage rates?
Well, we still have tons of homeowners that have 3% rates, rates hovering around 3%. Even if rates are coming down, but 3% is still a tremendously better rate than 5.79. So I think those people who have 3% rates are still going to be consistently encouraged in their own minds to stay where they are, unless there's some kind of family reason or economic reason or job change reason that would force them to move. Nobody wants to give up a 3% rate, and that's becoming very clear, and it continues to be clear.
Well, what's your biggest angry mortgage red flag right now? Like maybe some indicators or warning signs that you think some Americans are missing?
Well, the concern for everyone in the mortgage business is always the same. It's unemployment. And although employment has been robust in the United States, we are seeing certain areas of layoffs, some kind of unusual mass layoffs in some types of industries. The effect of AI, here's what we know. The effect of AI on the economy and on unemployment is going to be more severely seen in the United States than any other country, because the United States leads the world in that particular science. So they will be the first affected. There will be, the companies who are involved in AI or are using AI actively, like the big companies like Meta and Amazon. I mean, Amazon predicted that they would need 130,000 less workers just based on AI and robotics. To my mind, that's not good news for anybody who is making a payment on a mortgage right now.
Yeah, finally, there's a lot of talk about people migrating out of New York after Zoran Mamdani's win. The Texas governor very satirically posted on X that anybody coming from New York to Texas will be tariffed 100%. Some people have called Mamdani Florida's greatest real estate broker, and there's claims that Connecticut sold out new listings overnight. So is this something that is this a trend of migration we should actually be following, or is this just talk?
Hey, look, I mean, when President Trump was elected, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people said they were going to leave the country. So far, it looks like it's just Rosie O'Donnell. It's not, there's emotional reactions to any kind of political event. And I'm not gonna sell New York real estate short. It's still the financial capital of the world.
Very good, Ron. Where can we follow you?
Our Angry Mortgage podcast is easy to find, and Ron Mortgage Guy is my title in most other types of social media. So please take a look.
Yeah, please do follow Ron. He's got a great channel. Put the links down below. Thank you, Ron. Thank you for coming back to the show. We'll speak next time. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe.